Starting on day one, we will end inflation and make America affordable again. I will end the devastating inflation crisis immediately, bring down interest rates, and lower the cost of energy.
We're going to bring those prices way down.
A vote for Trump means your groceries will be... Starting on day one, we will end inflation and make America affordable again.
So now that the President Trump's policies are starting to take shape, how long will it take to cycle through and get some of the actual prices that Americans are paying to come down? Or is it a year, and will Americans have the patience to wait for it?
I don't have a timeline.
Basically, I call April 2nd. I would have made it April 1st, but I didn't want to be April Fool's Day because then nobody would believe what I said, and they do believe me. April 2nd is going to be Liberation Day for America. We've been ripped off by every country in the world, friend and foe. We've been ripped off on trade. We've been ripped off on military. We protect people, and they don't do anything for us. It's just so unfair for years and years. And now some of that money is going to be coming back to us in the form of tariffs. I mean, tens of billions. It's going to be numbers like nobody's ever seen.
中国人民不惹事儿，也不怕事，在任何困难和风险面前，腿肚子不会抖，腰杆子不会弯。中华民族是吓不倒、压不垮的。中国经济韧性强，潜力足，回旋余地广。长期向好的基本面不会改变。中国经济是一片大海，而不是一个小池塘。大海啊，有风平浪静之时，也有疯狂宇宙之时。狂风骤雨可以掀翻小池塘，但不能掀翻大海。经历了无数次狂风骤雨，大海依旧在哪儿？
We believe in international cooperation. We believe in the free and open exchange of goods, services, and ideas. And if the United States no longer wants to lead, Canada will.
I just wanted to capture my genuine reaction to immediately after reading that the EU was imposing reciprocal tariffs back on us. Okay, let's research what we export to the EU. First thing that pops up, minerals. Okay, what states produce these minerals? It's Arizona, Nevada, and Texas are the top three. Okay, what is the next thing that we export after minerals? It's food and beverage, okay? Who exports the most to EU? It's Texas and Florida. Okay, what's the third thing that we export the most to the EU? It's tobacco. Well, we all know where tobacco is made. Oh my god, you fucking idiots are excited about this. I'm actually crying. I cannot wait to hear what MAGA has to say about this, that it's a good thing.
Hey everyone, buckle up because today we are diving into the economic roller coaster that is rocking the world this April. Yep, we are talking Trump, tariffs, tanks, TikTok, and a very public prostration. Let's start with the headline move. President Trump dropped a tariff bomb that hit everyone except two countries. But the real story, what happened after?
Tonight, several developing stories as we come on the air. Protests all across the country as new tariffs take effect. Relentless, life-threatening storms in several states for a fourth day, and the search for suspects after a wild police chase and fiery crash. First, the large protests in multiple cities. From D.C. to California to Texas, tens of thousands of people challenging a variety of policies from the Trump administration and Elon Musk. All of this as the U.S. imposes new tariffs, growing concerns that prices will spike spike as Wall Street sinks. President Trump urging Americans to hang tough, and the new bipartisan move in the Senate to give Congress more control over tariffs.
Expect a recession?
I am going to defer to my economists at this point, but I think probably that's a likely outcome.
Trump's new tariff slapped a baseline 10% on imports from most countries except for Canada and Mexico. But China got the heavyweight treatment, a massive 125% tariff on key goods. The market's response? Pure chaos. Wall Street went into free fall. The Dow plunged nearly 2,000 points in a single day. Economics were sounding alarm, investors panicked, and social media was, well, brutal.
Major losses this morning. There it is.
As we're watching another 1,300-point drop as we see things in the Dow developing right now, it's kind of important to put some of the context around it. In the 2 days since really the tariff announcements have come out, and we've seen that 2-day market reaction for Thursday and Friday, data from S&P Dow Jones Indices now shows that 2-day drop in market value at just around nearly $6 trillion from the U.S. market wiped out. If you look at it from the record highs that we saw back on February 19th, that same data shows a nearly $11 trillion drop in the value of the stock market here in America since those record highs. Now, as you talk about what's happening today, we're seeing the follow through from what happened over the last couple of days, but a lot of it is due to this idea that there is still this notion people don't understand what the real effects of these tariff policies will be on not just the U.S. economy, but the global economy overall.
Okay, major breaking news. Donald Trump has just single-handedly crashed the global stock market. So the US market literally just opened after the weekend of it being closed, and in the first few moments, all of the major indexes fell yet again, between 3 and 4%. That brings the S&P's 3-day losses to around 13%. That's the biggest drop since the financial crisis of 2008. China's stock market, well, they suffered their worst single-day crash since 2008 as well. Hong Kong's stock market, they suffered their steepest single-day decline in nearly 3 decades. Taiwan had their biggest one-day drop in their history, flat out. Japan, they had to literally halt trading. Italy is down, Saudi is down, Germany is down, France, the UK, India, Australia, name a country, they are probably down. I mean, Russia, freaking Russia, they didn't even get hit with tariffs, yet they're down as well. And that's just Monday.
Then came the twist. Trump hit the brakes. He announced a 90-day pause on most tariffs, but not for China. That move triggered an immediate rebound in the stock market, with some calling it one of the fastest turnarounds in recent memory. But behind the scenes, things started unraveling. China and Japan started dumping US treasuries, reducing their holdings of American debt dramatically. For those wondering why that matters, if the US relies on these countries to buy its debt, this could mean higher interest rates and a weaker dollar down the line.
When the United States government needs money, they borrow it. They borrow it from places like China and Japan, but also from investors like us who buy U.S. bonds. And some point down the road, they will pay back the money they borrowed with a little bit of interest. And it's seen as a very safe investment because it's backed by the United States government. But now, because of Donald Trump and his trade policies, people are really, really worried that China and Japan, who hold trillions of dollars of U.S. bonds, are going to say, enough of these games, we're done, dump all the bonds.
Breaking news. Breaking news. I've been told by a credible source that China is now dumping U.S. debt and U.S. bonds. If you look, I'll show you. Gone up from 358 all the way up to 440 and now 2. It's gone up to 450 and it's keep going up and up and up. And the worry we have is that the estimates of debt that they hold is $859 billion. What my source said, it's more like 1.8 trillion. This trade war that we're going through is being battled in this realm, not in tariffs. And we need the USA, Donald Trump, to sit down with Xi Jinping and make a deal, because this is a serious problem.
Let's be clear what happened. Who capitulated here and why? And, I don't want to say this because I'm a patriot. I'm an American. But it is the White House who capitulated based on everything I hear and all my sources. And the reason why is because of the bond market and what happened last night. Bessent knows this better than anybody. When you have yields on the 10-year rising to 5%, stuff starts shutting down when you have the lending markets screwed up. By the way, who was dumping the bonds? Somebody asked them if it was China, right? Mm-hmm. It wasn't. It was Japan. While he was negotiating with Japan, according to my sources, who are running major money management firms that are involved in the bond market without giving up names, Japan was dumping bonds because they believed this was not a great place to do business.
And let's talk about the whispers. Actually, they are more like shouts. Rumors are swirling that Trump is now desperately trying to reopen trade talks with China, with some insiders even claiming that he's privately reaching out to Beijing while publicly bashing them.
Trump is now asking Xi to pretty please come speak to him so they can stop this tariff war. That's how bad the situation is. And Trump overplayed his card. He didn't realize what he was doing. First, he attacked everyone all around the world at the same time. This idea that he was going after China doesn't pass, because why would you attack the whole world and make everyone an enemy by attacking in terms of those tariffs applying? First did it with defense. He said, we're not going to rely on U.S. defense. That pushed Europe away, and that's a great thing for Europe, that they have to, it's kind of their independence to not rely on the U.S. anymore. But you lose your power when you do that. And then you apply tariffs on them. And now everyone's looking at the U.S. as a risk, not as an ally. They're thinking, how can we reduce our reliance on the U.S.? They say the trade deficit is like people are taking advantage of us. They're not. They produce things. You buy those things. That's how a trade deficit is created. You print your money out of thin air, and you're able to do that without consequences because the dollar is the reserve currency, so it holds its value when other countries cannot do that. You just print the money, and you give it to people who actually have to have labor, plants and machinery, innovation, has real costs to create those goods, and you just pay it with some paper that you just printed out. You have the advantage. A lot of the manufacturing jobs are gone because of technology, where robots have come and taken out a lot of those roles. Before you even create a plant, that takes 5 to 10 years. And while you're waiting for that to happen, you're contracting the economy because, one, the goods that are coming into the U.S. are now much higher, so businesses have to pay more until the manufacturing in the U.S. builds up, which takes years. So in the meantime, the costs of goods are going up because they're being imported and apply tariffs to them. And this is paid by U.S. businesses and U.S. consumers. People think that foreign countries are going to pay that. It's not. You guys are going to pay that. So those businesses are increasing their costs. And because other countries are retaliating, U.S. is exporting less to other countries. So those businesses, in terms of revenue goes down. So they have less profits, which results in layoffs. And so there's an economic contraction, and therefore a recession is going to happen. But this time it's going to be very different because you have a recession plus high inflation because of the imported goods being much higher in terms of price. And this recession, the government can't just borrow money to stimulate the economy because it's borrowed so much. The debt to GDP is about 125% in the U.S. Debt is 36 trillion. You borrow more, people will require a much higher interest rate, which is what you're seeing in the bond market. The debt that the government is issuing for the 30-year is reaching 5%. For the 10-year is about 4.67%. These are very, very high numbers. The cost of the government borrowing is going higher whilst a recession is happening. And this is going to result in the Fed jumping in and printing money to stimulate the economy, which is going to increase inflation even further, making it more expensive for goods and services in the U.S.
Yup. Some folks are joking that Trump is doing everything short of getting on his knees on national television. Whether that's true or not, one thing is clear. He's feeling the pressure from all sides: Wall Street, Main Street, and even his own party. Meanwhile, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney had a moment. He said if the US won't lead in global trade, Canada will, and that the old relationship with America is done.
Canada must be looking elsewhere to expand our trade, to build our economy, and to protect our sovereignty. Canada is ready to take a leadership role in building a coalition of like-minded countries who share our values. We believe in international cooperation. We believe in the free and open exchange of goods, services, and ideas. And if the United States no longer wants to lead, Canada will.
Bold words from Canada's leader. And honestly, not surprising. Canada already slapped back with auto tariffs on American vehicles, showing they are not afraid to strike back, even under USMCA.
President Trump's announcement of universal tariffs on the whole world, including the European Union, is a major blow to the world economy. We are prepared to respond. We are already finalizing the first package of countermeasures in response to tariffs on steel. And we're now preparing for further countermeasures to protect our interests and our businesses if negotiations fail.
Across the Atlantic, the European Union is not staying quiet either. President Ursula said these tariffs are a major blow to the world's economy and promised that Europe would push back. And push back they did. The European Union officially imposed retaliatory tariffs of 25% on $23 billion worth of US goods. These tariffs target a range of products including soybeans, beef, motorcycles, and even iconic American items like bourbon, whiskey, and jeans. The EU strategy hit products from Republican-leaning states to maximize political pressure. With tensions rising, global investors are asking, is this the start of a full-on trade war? JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon even warned that the US recession is likely outcome if this continues.
So are you hearing that from CEOs as well in terms of business managers? Are they now going to start pulling it in and cutting back on various expenses?
I think you're going to see a little bit of that, yes. Yeah.
But how significant would you expect that? Do you personally expect a recession?
I am going to defer to my economists at this point, but I think probably that's a likely outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Because markets, I mean, when you see a 2,000 point decline, it sort of feeds on itself, doesn't it? Because it makes you feel like you're losing money in your 401k, you're losing money in your pension. You got to cut back.
Yeah. I always remind people markets aren't always right, but sometimes they are right, and I think this time they are right because they're just pricing in uncertainty at the macro level and uncertainty at the micro level, at the actual company level. And then how it affects consumer sentiment, it's hard to tell. You know, consumers still have jobs, wages are going up at the low end, which I think is a good thing. But if companies start cutting back, yeah, the consumer sentiment changes and business sentiment changes. You know, I think you've already seen business sentiment change a little bit. Hopefully, you know, no one's wishing for that, but you know, hopefully if there is one, it'll be short. But I do think fixing these tariff issues and trade issues would be a good thing to do. That will get one major uncertainty behind us. We have the strongest economy in the world. It would be good not to add to the uncertainty out there.
So now we are left with a world on edge, markets reacting to every word, countries preparing trade defenses, and a president who is trying to act tough while possibly negotiating behind the scenes. But seriously, what's President Trump's play here? One day is tariffs, the next day is a 90-day pause. Is this a strategy or just a chaotic guessing game? And if it is a game, what kind of game gambles with the savings, jobs, and futures of millions of Americans? Because every move is sending shockwaves through the economy. One thing is for sure, right now, it looks like the US is in a fist fight with the very global economy it helped build. What does this all mean for you, for us? Expect rising prices, shifting job markets, and possibly economic turbulence for the rest of the year. It's messy, it's high stakes, and it's happening right now. Let me know in the comments. Do you think President Trump's tariff gamble will pay off, or is he playing a losing game? Hit that like button, subscribe, and don't forget to ring the notification bell so you don't miss a single twist in this global saga. Until next time, stay smart, stay skeptical, and stay tuned. YouTube thinks you will like this video over here. Thank you so much for watching. See you in the next video. Over.